What's up, guys? A quick evening update, not only on Hurricane Florence, but the possibility of a system forming in the coming days headed towards the Gulf of Mexico. And it's not Hurricane Isaac. Talk about that here in a minute. They just came out with this information this afternoon of a possible system forming headed towards the Gulf of Mexico. So we could have Hurricane Florence making a landfall, and then some sort of a system, whether it be a tropical storm or a hurricane, making a landfall within about 24 hours of Florence. Pretty incredible. What's up, guys? Look at these waves here. I'm starting off with the potential wave height of Hurricane Florence near the East Coast. If you're looking at what I'm looking at, the Outer Banks are going to be potentially inundated with very tall waves. There's a lot of homes in this area, and the waves, according to this, are 20 feet in some places inside the barrier. So that's not a good situation. The forecast model has changed some. It's actually starting, the GFS is starting to come into alignment with the European model, and they're starting to move a little bit more towards central North Carolina, just a little. Not much of a change, but I'll share that with you here in just a couple of minutes. High Tennessee, West Michigan. Be safe out there, guys. No joke, this storm could be making landfall with not only heavy amounts of rain, but extremely high winds. They've got this forecasted now. Let me show you from the National Hurricane Center. New forecast model today showing, here's the new disturbance I want to show you real quick. This system here has a 30% chance of forming in the next 5 days. It's now between now and Thursday. It could turn into a tropical storm right here and go right up into the Gulf of Mexico. This system here. They're thinking right now more towards the Texas area, but making a landfall just after Florence, or right around the same time as Florence. So we could see 2, maybe 3 landfalls at the same time if you factor in Olivia making an impact out on the Hawaiian Islands. So let me show you the new numbers for Miss Florence. The model is still pretty much the same with regard to the location of potential impact, being a major hurricane right before landfall with wind speeds, let me show you, of Category 4 strength. Almost a Cat 5. Just offshore. Almost a Category 5 storm. Showing wind gusts of 185 miles per hour now. And this is in 3 days when it's right inside the infamous Bermuda Triangle. Then as it gets closer to shore, the wind speeds, what is that, about 40 miles offshore? 30? You've got wind speeds sustained of 140, gusts of 165 right before landfall. Then from here to here is 24 hours. So it's going to sit right here in this location for 24 hours. And if we do basic math with tropical storms in general across the board, typically they're very capable of dropping an inch an hour quite easily. They are tropical storms after all. Usually they can drop rain at heavier rates than that, but if it's sitting here for 24 hours at least, you can expect copious amounts of rain. So the track is still the same. It doesn't look like it's going to change anymore today based off of the guidance models, the high pressures out in the Atlantic Ocean. It doesn't look like they're going to change too much, actually, in the next 2 or 3 days. So expect an impact, prepare now. Storm surge, very high waves, as we showed earlier. Those are going to go right over those barriers. You're looking at waves of 20 feet inside there. That's incredible. Let me show you the models here real quick. This is the new system right here that could develop into a tropical storm, enter the Gulf of Mexico as some sort of a tropical storm, quite possibly a hurricane. Don't think it's going to have time. It's going to be similar, if you ask me. This is just my opinion. It's going to be similar to that of Gordon, as it will be moving rather quickly. And that's a good thing inside the Gulf of Mexico, because this is like a giant bathtub or a sauna with temperatures of 90-degree water. So any storm that gets in there, whether it's an overachiever or not, you give it enough time in there and it will become an overachiever. So we could see this system go, they're thinking now towards Texas, but that could change. It's just a forecast that's based off of something forming that hasn't even formed yet. So we'll see. But Florence has made the journey similar to Irma, coast to coast. It's about halfway through the journey now, a little over halfway. Once it gets past the 70-degree parallel north, or the west parallel, the longitude, it's going to gain momentum. And it's going to go a little bit faster, get to the shore, and slow down. And sit right here for 24, quite possibly even 48 hours. So the rain totals are more than likely going to be record-setting. The moisture is definitely there. Let's look at windy, and let's look at the GFS. And I'm going to show you how the GFS has came in just a little bit. And I've also got another model. Yeah, that one right there. That model there shows this storm doing something quite incredible, actually, making 2 landfalls. And this one does too. Let me show you the European model first. Hang on just a second. All right, here we go. This is the European model. The 2 that I use are the European and the GFS. Those are the ones that I've used for years, and they're normally both very good. Both very good. Accumulation rates, I'll get to that here in just a moment, but the accumulation rates, I'm going to give you some simple math to use that will be helpful if you're anywhere near the center of rotation or the right-hand quadrant of this storm. The accumulation will be greater on the right-hand side of the storm, so if it makes landfall, let me zoom in a little tighter. Accumulation rates are going to be simply astronomical, especially if this thing stalls and slows down, especially up in through here, guys. Southeast Virginia, Virginia Beach, and going a little tighter. Kitty Hawk. Wilmington, more than likely, is going to see large amounts of rainfall. Greenville, Roanoke Rapids, Richmond. What's this here? Exmoor. Up the Chesapeake Bay, more than likely, will have an abundance of water. This is the European model. Wednesday, Thursday, starting to make landfall. So right there, if it stays on that track, which there's a pretty good chance that it could, the bulk of the rain is going to be over here on this side. Huge amounts of rain. And if it sits here, in fact, I'm going to let it run on its own, okay? Here it makes landfall. Right here, it's still a Category 4. And then quickly, well, 24 hours after it sits here and spins and drops large amounts of rain. That's Thursday into Friday. So this area right here, you can see it's going to be affected for 24 hours. Use this simple. This is what I do with tropical storms. But storms these days are, you never know. I mean, they can be unpredictable. But generally, and this is usually low, these storms can drop if they're stalled over an area or moving very, very slowly. An inch an hour is kind of low for these things. Usually they can be moving, at 10 miles an hour and drop a foot of rain. That's not a problem. But if this thing stalls, I hate to say it, but sky's the limit with potential rainfall if it slows down like it's predicted to, which both models are showing it doing that. So an inch an hour. Just figure for every hour that this thing is sitting over your location, figure an inch an hour. And you're going to have to factor in high winds, so there's going to be power outages in this area. No doubt about it. I'm convinced, even though, unless the track changes, if it comes up here as a Category 4 with sustained winds of 140 miles per hour, there's going to be widespread power outages in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia right off the bat. So expect it. And depending on the size of this thing and its intensity, it could be a while before they can get all the power restored. So prepare for that. Hopefully it won't happen. That would be great. But if you're prepared for it, you're not going to be surprised. So this is Wednesday. You can see Wednesday night, it's sitting here offshore, unfortunately, going to make a landfall overnight. Wednesday into Thursday, you can see it's starting to make landfall early Thursday night in the overnight hours. Heavy, huge amounts of rain through here. Kitty Hawk, Roanoke Rapids, expect an inch an hour. That's the easiest way to formulate this. And I'm not saying that that's going to be 100% accurate, but it's going to be pretty close. Expect an inch an hour for every hour this thing sits over your location. This is the Gfs model. The European model. And you can see it takes it well inland. And all of this is high wind and heavy moisture. So the heavy moisture is going to go up into West Virginia, Roanoke, Virginia. Heavy amounts of rainfall. Bluefield, accumulations will be incredible. More than likely, record-setting accumulations. So, low-lying areas, lakes, streams, rivers, all the tributaries are going to be overloaded. There could be, if this thing stalls for any length of time, landslides in the elevations. So you need to prepare for that. Any tributaries that run through the elevations are going to be carrying a lot more water than they used to be carrying. It's going to loosen up the soil. It's going to create landslides. So if it continues on this track, which it's been in this general area all day long, that's the European model. Let's look at the Gfs model. It shows something a little different, but in the same general area. Let's switch models. Same day, Thursday. So it's showing a landfall of Thursday night during the overnight hours, unfortunately, when it's dark. High winds, more than likely power outages, have extra batteries, have flashlights, and have water, 1 gallon per day per person. And you'll be good. Help each other. So this is Thursday night. Friday. Look how far it's moved. In 24 hours. Look at this. These Outer Banks, I know if I've said it once, I've said it 50 times. There's going to be an epic event here along these Outer Banks. Okay, Thursday night, Friday, still sitting there. Friday morning, Friday lunchtime, Friday afternoon. Saturday morning? Are you serious? So we're looking at Thursday landfall. All day Thursday, especially in eastern and central North Carolina, parts of southeastern Virginia, clear up into the Chesapeake Bay. There's high winds and rain up there. Very high winds along the coast, but these Outer Banks, oh, wow. So anyway, 24, 36, right there, 36 hours. Still there, just a general rule of thumb, because it's not going to be raining every single square acre here. You know how these things work. They work in rain bands. The rain bands carry copious amounts of rain. So one rain band could be carrying 6 inches of rain. Okay, if you get in a training event where your city or your location is linear with one of those rain bands, then expect maybe 4 or 5 inches of rain in 1 hour, you know. But overall, mathematically, it will equate to, let's say you get 5 inches in 1 hour, and then you may not get any rain for another 2 hours, and you'll get another big batch of rain again. Averages out to about 1 inch an hour. But this thing is still sitting here. Now we're into Sunday. 48 hours. So can you imagine the rainfall totals here? You've got a tropical storm sitting over your area for 48 hours. And the eye wall is still hugging its water source. So literally, if this model unfolds, and you can see the eye wall is still slightly over water. If this situation unfolds, the rainfall totals could more than likely be record-setting. It's probably going to be record-setting anyway because the ground is very saturated in this area. Wilmington saw 62 inches of rain this year. They've already been dealing with flooding. So now we're into Sunday afternoon, and you've got a very unorganized system, but it's still going to be windy and wet. Now we're into Monday. It's still hanging around. So we've spent Thursday night in the early morning hours, all day Thursday, all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and now into Monday. Absolutely crazy. And still lingering around on Monday afternoon. Look at that. So if this model unfolds, which they're both going to be epic events, you know, either way, but this is going to have more of a coastal, especially the Outer Banks impact. It's going to sit there for just days, literally. That's the GFS model. One of them shows I think 10-day where this thing goes clear up. It makes landfall here in North Carolina, and then let's see if it shows it on here. Then it goes back out to sea, kind of in the direction that it came from, and then, well, it's kind of changed. It goes right back out where it came from. Now another model shows it going back out to where it came from and then quickly going up to Nova Scotia in about 2.5 days. But right now, what the model is showing, a Thursday overnight impact and lingering for the better part of 3.5 to 4 days. I mean, that's just nuts. That is absolutely nuts. Okay, here's the GFS model at tropical. It's showing pretty much the same thing. Let me see if I can zoom in a little tighter. Check this out. See it going up to Nova Scotia, and it actually impacts Nova Scotia as a high-end tropical storm or a Category 1 hurricane, or at least it's got hurricane force winds, let's put it that way. Okay, so here it comes. This is the GFS model. It's going to park over North Carolina, but it will be affecting West or Virginia, a wide area. This doesn't show all of the areas that it'll be affecting. Sits there for 3 days and goes back out to sea. As a hurricane, by the way. 942 millibars is a Category 2 or Category 3 hurricane. Requesting sounding. You can request sound here and it will show you different aspects of that part of the storm system. Pretty neat. Here's another model. Pretty much the same general outcome. There we go. So the models are starting to come into agreement with the GFS in regard to the GFS and the European. Same area. Sitting there for days. That's showing Monday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, departing Monday, going back out the way it came, and then up to Nova Scotia. That's wild. then let's see if we can maybe see this tropical wave over here in the Gulf of Mexico. This is the GFS 6-hour, starting down here as a low pressure, and it's a random collection of thunderstorms that may form into a tropical storm, making landfall in the Texas area. I don't think it's going to do much. Let's go back and take a look. What do we got here? Oh, this is Florence on channel 13. So you can see it is becoming more and more organized. It's got good outflows. You know, with regard to like a textbook hurricane, that's what it's looking like again. It was almost defeated by the wind shear, and now it's reforming again. I mean, these things are something else. Let's look at, real quick, there's another loop. Those are the waves, guys. That's on Friday after it gets really close. The waves going over the Outer Banks are going to be unbelievable, over 20 feet. See if I can find the one I was looking for. This one's going to be a short live stream, by the way. Okay, here we go. Just wanted to give you the meat and potatoes of this update. Okay, we've got a new potential system forming here in the next 48 hours. They're not looking for it to form, but in these very warm waters, you know, anything can happen. But I think right now the problem is wind shear, and that's going to keep whatever's here from forming at least anytime real soon. 30% chance in 5 days. And normally when they give these things a 30% chance, they generally go up pretty quickly. But they're starting off kind of conservative with this system because they're not real sure. But the path of this system is into the Gulf of Mexico. Right up in through here in the coming 5 days. But don't look for anything major with regard to that system. I don't think it's going to be anything major because it's moving too quickly. Moving too quickly. You've got this one moving quickly. You've got Florence moving slow. And I want to talk a little bit about Helene here just for a second. This one here, if it would have came all the way across and avoided the wind shear, that's how Irma made the whole journey, much like Florence. Florence is making the journey. Started over here. It's going to go 4,000 miles and more than likely impact the U.S. mainland. That's what Irma did, traveled 4,000 miles. But the thing with Irma, it encountered very little wind shear. And the steering currents were always conducive to its track. I mean, it kept it going on track the whole way. And it encountered very little wind shear. And it was a very strong storm, like this one. So if this one, what I'm getting at is, if this storm here would have moved west and not had any wind shear, this thing came off of the west coast of Africa super tall. This was a very big storm. Luckily, this took a right-hand turn and is encountering wind shear, and it's basically going to be erased and tossed up into the North Atlantic. So this is going to be nothing to worry about. This is Helene. But if it would have kept going straight, this could have been a very big storm. But luckily it's not. But it had the potential, let me tell you. I saw that come off there like Irma last year. Irma encountered no wind shear and hardly any resistance at all. That's why it achieved 185 mile an hour sustained winds for over 4 days. It had the green light the entire way. 4,000 mile journey. Unbelievable. And that's what Florence is doing. But it hasn't been easy for Florence. Encountered the cool waters, still managed to get to Cat 4 in 80-degree water. Encountered wind shear, is overcoming the wind shear, and is expected to become a high-end Category 4 storm here in less than 72 hours, with wind gusts of 185, sustained winds of 150 miles an hour. That's incredible. So the journey hasn't been as easy for Florence as it was with regard to Hurricane Irma. This is not going to be a Hurricane Irma, or at least it shouldn't. But I will say this, those 185 mile an hour gusts, that is something to respect. That is some very high wind. And we'll see those in probably less, 72 hours, 3 days. Right there, just north of the Bahamas and directly east of Jacksonville, Florida. What is that? 250 miles offshore. It's still headed up into the Carolinas. So guys, this is going to be a short live stream. I just wanted to give you the newest updates that I've gotten. This thing doesn't look like it's changing course anytime soon. There's nothing really stopping it. It's got the green light like Irma had. Irma had the green light from the west coast of Africa all the way to the southern tip of Florida. This one here, like I said, it's been a little more challenging. But do look for an impact. You got a Cat 4 coming up on the east coast of the United States in less than 96 hours. And when it's sitting right here, you're looking at maximum sustained winds of 140 miles an hour. Those will be felt inland. So expect power outages from this storm, expect storm surge, and expect a days of Noah-like flooding event if it stays on this track. That's unbelievable. That would be an epic rainmaker. So expect it. If this track doesn't change, expect significant rain, power outages, flash flooding, and overall flooding, probably like you've never seen before, because you're going to have a tropical storm parked over your location for over at least 48 hours. So prepare now, and hopefully you won't need it. But I have a feeling that you're going to need it, guys. So just a big heads up. Wow, I want to thank Brenda. Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Yusuf. Phoebe. Thank you, guys. That's very, very kind. I gotta be honest. When I'm looking at these charts, it's hard for me to look at the charts, these maps, and all of this information to present it to you guys in a. I try to do it in a professional manner, and it's hard for me to manage the chat room and interact and look at these maps and give you guys my very best advice. And I apologize for that. I'd rather give you my very best advice when it comes to these things, because I have been following them for a long time, but I am by no means an expert. I want you to know that. But I do follow these storms like a hawk. I have since 2004. But that doesn't mean I'm an expert. I'm just a very avid storm tracker. That's what I do. That's what I like to do. I'm a watchman. I watch all aspects of our planet, the solar system. It's something that intrigues me greatly. I can't help it. It's who I am. But this storm here, you guys need to prepare. Prepare like it's a Cat 5. Hopefully, it won't be near as bad. But right now, the models are all showing a Category 4 approaching land in less than 4 days. So be prepared, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a super day, and be safe out there.